And good evening again, Hoops HD fans. Welcome to another edition of Under the Radar, your source for everything to do with teams that nobody else other than probably the two of us are talking about. But I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, and with me, as always, David Griggs. David, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little bit upset. We're going to get to that later, why, but I have not heard back from my application, and
This doesn't have to do with that bottle of whiskey from the
well,
other
I don't
night.
under so.
Uh,
I mean, I
well,
don't see why that would be a problem.
anyhow, David, we have a few topics we want to go over here tonight. And the first topic is only half under the radar because it's about the Kentucky Wildcats, who I don't think quite qualify as an under the radar team,
Right.
uh, given that they are the best team in the country. But the other half of the story has to do with the UTEP Miners. I don't think you actually know the story yet either.
I don't. I am hearing this for the first time, as everyone else hears it.
As you may know, and there was a great movie that came out about 7 or 8 years ago, Glory Road, about the 1966 Texas Western over
Yes.
Kentucky national championship game, perhaps the most historically significant championship game ever played, when the Texas Western team, coached by Don Haskins, started 5 African American players against an all-white Kentucky team. Really helped change the landscape of college basketball. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend it to everybody to go out there and watch it, learn that story. Um, that was the 1966 championship game. Texas Western is now known as UTEP, same school. In honor of the 50th anniversary of that game, Texas UTEP and Kentucky had scheduled a game to be played at the Cole Field House in Maryland, where that championship game occurred,
Wow.
next year in 2016, in the spring, in the middle of the SEC schedule. It's the 50th anniversary. It sounded like just a great idea, great thing. Really would have been
Yeah.
just a great tribute to that team.
Yeah, and a tribute to both teams and just to the game. Yeah. Yeah. That's. I didn't realize they were going to do that.
They were
That's
going to do that next year. Now, 2 weeks ago, Kentucky unilaterally canceled the game.
what?
Now, this is
What?
the state. Let me read through.
No.
This is Tim Floyd's quote. Tim Floyd, head coach of UTEP, when asked why they canceled it, this is what he said. They just backed out, said that there were a lot of people up there that didn't want the game to be played for whatever reason, so I don't want to throw them completely under the bus, but that's okay. We'll just stay with a 1-0 record against Kentucky in college basketball. If they never want to play again and act like the game never happened for the reasons why it occurred are significant, then we'll just never play again. That's what Tim Floyd said, really slapping Kentucky down, and deservedly so.
Yes, and I'm not the biggest fan of Tim Floyd, but wow, I'm so glad he said that.
Now,
Um,
now, there was a response from Kentucky. The response was kind of like, well, we never officially agreed to play the game. We were just in talks. It just wasn't going to work with our schedule because we can't play out-of-conference game away from home during the middle of the SEC season. It was a very lame response from Kentucky.
yes, that
But
is.
but that was Kentucky's response to it. But what a tribute this game would have been on the 50th anniversary year of the most significant game in college basketball history. For Kentucky to just say, "Nah, we're not going to do it because we have people here that don't want us to play the game."
Right, and I'm not the biggest fan of gimmick games. I like some of them. I think some of them are too gimmicky. I never need to see a game on a boat again. Um, but this one would have been really cool. Cole Fieldhouse still there. I mean, just to reopen it, reset it, and really, it would have been a competitive game. I realize UTEP is probably overmatched, but it still would have been a good game.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, all I have to say is shame on Kentucky for this. There's no
Yeah.
reason not to let this game happen. What a tribute it would have been. Um, there were. I just want to word this carefully here. I mean, there was always accusations of whether or not there was racism involved with the head coach of Kentucky back then in the 60s. I don't believe that there was. I'm not trying to say there was, but there were definitely some racist implications going on with that game.
Yeah.
I hope to God it has nothing to do with the reason why Kentucky backed out of it this time. Although you could see that
I
they don't want the memory of that
Right.
drug up, and that might be part of some of the reasoning somewhere in there.
That might be part of it. In Kentucky, perhaps unfairly, is painted as I don't know, sort of like I mean, they're definitely wearing the black hats in that scenario. Maybe unfairly. I realize it was the first time we had 5 black starters, but I believe it was after Wilt Chamberlain had played. It was after Loyola. I believe 3 or 4 years after that, or I forget the exact year, had won the national championship with 4 black starters. So it wasn't as if it was the first time anyone ever the light bulb went on and it was like, oh, some of these black players can really play. I think that was already known. I'm not saying it wasn't a very historically important game, but I think the whole race element is, I don't want to say overplayed, but maybe misrepresented, because I think already, it was 20 years after Jackie Robinson. I think at that time there were already black players that were contributing in a big way in major college basketball. I don't know. I wasn't there. That's just my
and I would absolutely, if you want to know more about the story of that game, go out, rent the movie Glory Road, or download it, or however you get movies. This game, Netflix it. It was an excellent movie that really was a tribute to them, and did not paint historic figures there in that negative light.
Right.
But just shame on Kentucky, though, for canceling this game. What a great game it would have been at the Cole Fieldhouse.
Yeah, it really would have been.
But with that said, let's move on to this season as opposed to next. We can get to next season next year and get right into the under the radar. David, why don't you refresh it again? What is an under the radar team for those 2 or 3 people that have never seen us before?
Right. It's the teams outside what we have identified as the 9 regular multi-bid leagues. I realize the Missouri Valley is getting multiple teams in this year, as is the West Coast perhaps with St. Mary's coming on. But the regular multi-bid leagues, and we have identified those as the ACC, SEC, American, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, Mountain West, Atlantic 10. Oh, God. I always fail the quiz. What am I forgetting? That's only 8.
I think you missed the Big East there, possibly.
Big East. Yes, sorry, the Big East. So the 9 multi-bid leagues, if you're in those leagues, you're not under the radar. If you're in the national rankings, like one of the 2 major polls, you're also not under the radar. So whereas we consider the Missouri Valley an under-the-radar conference, Wichita State and Northern Iowa in the rankings, so they are not under the radar.
And the same with team, that's Gonzaga, top 3 in the country. They're really not under the radar at all.
Right.
But everybody else in those conferences is. And what we like to do with these shows is just run through those conferences, discuss whether there's any at-large possibilities, discuss who we think the best team in the conference is, and then we'll run through our top 10 list and do a little preview of the upcoming week. So on that, let's just move right to the America East, where we had the game of the season in the conference tonight. Albany was at Vermont. Albany already having won at Stony Brook and at Hartford this year. This was probably their last major road test in the conference, and here we are still in January.
Right, and again, this is a conference they've moved to campus sites for the conference tournament. This was an Albany team that you watched them in November and December, and I realized the schedule was rough, but it didn't really excite us or jump out at us. I think had you asked us at the beginning of January, as we were getting in the conference play, what we thought about Albany, I don't think we would have thought they were 8-0 already with 2 of the better, more challenging road wins out of the way. The path is clear for them to get the rights to host the conference tournament and win it all and get that automatic bid.
Yeah, and it is. They are now 8-0. They came up. They got a 3 with about 1.5 seconds left to break a 44-all tie. After they had actually led most of the second half, Vermont made a comeback, but Albany got the big win, are now 8-0. They have now won at Vermont, at Stony Brook, at Hartford. They've also already won at New Hampshire, who is the other top team in this conference. Amazingly enough, David, New Hampshire has not had a winning record since 1995, 20 years.
Yeah.
And here
they are at 12-9, if I'm looking at this right.
Yes, they are 12-9. After they beat Maine tonight, to move to 12-9.
Wait a minute. No, when did you see this? Wins against Maine no longer count as full wins. They're .65.
Okay, so they are
11.65
11.65.
and 9. Yes.
Okay, yes, 11.65 and 9. Great shot at a winning record. Probably not a postseason play, but they may end up being the third best team in this conference.
Yes.
After, and they could be amazingly hosting a conference tournament game.
Wow. Wouldn't that
I don't know there's ever been a conference tournament game played in the state of New Hampshire.
I don't know if there's ever. I don't know if there's ever been any sort of game. Well, anyway. All right. And again, 9 teams in this league. We'd like to see them go out to 10 next year. We'll get to that later.
Yes. Over in the Atlantic Sun, sitting now at 5-0, still undefeated, the North Florida Ospreys.
Matt Driscoll again took over this team. I believe they were still transitional. Were they like? And he's done a really good job. Again, you were big on them before the season started. I really wasn't, but I mean I've been proven wrong. Here they are, 5-0. And again, this is another conference that's exciting because of home court advantage throughout the conference tournament, so they could have the right to host all 3 games. I do think that this conference is destined for the 16 line, no matter who it is. Florida Gulf Coast certainly looked impressive for part of November, but really hasn't since.
Yeah, and for a little while there, we thought South Carolina Upstate was coming on, but they've now fallen to 2 and 3 in the conference.
That is shocking, really.
What's not shocking is that Stetson is 0-5.
Yes, that is. Oh boy.
I cannot remember a Stetson team that was ever any good, but
no, and this one is not either.
No. Speaking of teams that have never been any good, but suddenly are this year, over in the Big Sky, Sacramento State is now 7-1 in conference, 13-6 overall. I believe looking for their first ever winning season at the D1 level.
Yeah. And again, we have a little bit of a logjam here. Montana, I guess we'll talk about them too.
Sure.
I was really so underwhelmed with them, and this Montana team. It was them and Weber State. We're used to kind of seeing the two of them sprint away from the rest of the league. It's been that way for the past 4 or 5 years. Montana was awful out of conference, but they've looked a lot better in conference. I know the competition is not that strong in this league, but they've still just looked better than what we saw throughout November and December, and they're part of this 3-way lock with Eastern Washington and Sacramento State. And again, there are stakes in these games because the regular season champion hosts it's an 18 format now. Did it go to campus sites?
No, they with the addition of Idaho this year, they did expand the conference tournament out to 8 teams, but it is still all 3 rounds will be played at the regular season champion. So this isn't even a conference where finishing second is still okay, as it would be something like the Atlantic Sun or the America East, where it's all at campus sites.
Right.
You've got to win this conference to get that big advantage.
Yeah, and again, that's really exciting. Ultimately, I really like this Eastern Washington team. I think we both had them in our top 10, which we'll get to later. I think they ultimately will win this league and host and, hopefully win the conference tournament. But Sacramento State and Montana have been kind of a surprise since conference play started.
And you mentioned this Montana Weber State. Coming into the season, I thought Montana was a team that was going to slip this year, and Weber State would be right there. Weber's sitting at 3-5 in the conference, 8-11 overall. Right now, they're battling to even finish in that top 8 and make the conference tournament. They are in 8th place as we speak.
Yes. And fortunately, Idaho State is in this conference, so they should be able to get ahead of them. And Southern Utah, last year's centenary winner, much improved. They're still awful, but they're much improved.
They're much improved, 5 wins already, including a home win over the aforementioned Weber State Wildcats. So definitely a shout out to Southern Utah and the job they've done rebuilding, albeit slowly.
Mm-hmm.
David, there was another major upset in the Big South Conference tonight. As for the second week in a row, Coastal Carolina lost at home. Last week it was to Gardner-Webb. This week it was to Winthrop. They are now part of what is a 5-way tie for second place at 6-3, all behind High Point.
Yeah, I'm just going to read down the list here. One game, and this is separates these teams. High Point, Charleston Southern, surprising Charleston Southern. I mean, again, all year long, done well in conference. Coastal, Winthrop, Asheville, Radford. That is 6 teams separated by 1 game in this league.
One more game back to Gardner Webb, who
Yeah.
who won that game at Coastal already. So,
and you know what makes this conference great about how exciting these standings are, Chad? Do you know?
what makes it great?
Doesn't mean a damn thing because the conference tournament is at a predetermined site. Ruining what could be an awesome high. I mean, oh boy, why do they do this?
It really is a shame that the team that Coastal Carolina could finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, and still get to host the conference tournament. You end up putting High Point, potentially who wins the conference regular season, in a semifinal game at Coastal Carolina. It's just not fair. It really is not.
It isn't fair. It isn't practical, and again, it isn't fun. I mean, as good as this league has been, as exciting as it's been, you don't have the stakes that we have in the America East. You know, the ASUN. I mean, could you imagine if campus sites were on the line in this league with a logjam of 6 teams separated by 1 game? I mean, it would be awesome. It would be mayhem. And instead, it's crap. And the thing is, this league used to do it. They were one of the few leagues that did it at campus sites all the way through, and they got away from that for reasons I don't really understand. The crowds have been smaller. The regular season has been more meaningless since they got away from that format.
Well, I mean, and they're playing these games in Myrtle Beach. I guess maybe it's
Chad.
But they're.
Oh, sorry, I lost you. I think I muted you for a second. Say something.
You muted me?
Yeah. Okay. I think I sat on the. Or you must have sat on. I must have sat on something. I don't have any arms.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yes, you are back.
Okay, I'm back. Well, the point I was making before you muted me, and I wasn't even drinking your whiskey this time when you did that.
Yeah. Why did you drink my whiskey?
Is that, you know, they're playing these games in Conway, South Carolina, right outside of Myrtle Beach, and yeah, maybe that's a draw, but Coastal Carolina's arena holds 3,600 people. It's a tiny arena.
Yeah.
And you play, and so I really just don't get why they're doing it there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a nice size arena in Asheville. I know the SoCon actually plays their tournament there, but I think
they're not at the same time.
I don't think they're at the same point.
It's over before the SoCon starts. And anyway, why play it at a predetermined location at all? Like for the non-under-the-radar conferences, the 9 that we mentioned, I don't give a damn what they do about their tournament. For the under-the-radar conferences, I think you need to do something to protect your first-place team, a ladder, campus sites. Both. The Horizon League does both. This league does neither. And it basically renders, unless somebody really goes out and blows up November and December, all you're really doing all season long is determining who's going to wear white in the conference tournament. That's it.
The only other thing that I could really understand is when you go with a really, truly neutral site, and it's very rare to be able to do that, but I'm thinking of when the Metro Atlantic was doing their games in Springfield. The West Coast Conference does their tournament in Vegas. Those I mean, that almost is true neutral site.
Yeah.
You know, so Big South, if they want to play this tournament out in Las Vegas, I'd be all for that.
Yes, I'm sure it would be a draw.
Over in the Big West Conference, Long Beach has finally moved into a first-place tie. Now it's a 3-way: UC Davis, UC Irvine, Long Beach, UCSB, right, 1 game back of those 3.
Yeah.
I think we believe that Long Beach is the best team, even though they're still 1 game under 500.
Right, I definitely think they are. Their out-of-conference schedule was brutal. I don't think a top 25 team would have been able to go on the road and win 1 or 2 more than what Long Beach did running through that gauntlet. I actually, not only do I think they're the best team in this league, I think they're pretty good overall and will actually, if they were to get to the round of 64, be playing a team in a more manageable, more winnable circumstance than what the majority of their out-of-conference games were. They're climbing the RPI. They're up into the lower 60s now. They'll continue to climb it. Don't be surprised. In fact, I am fully expecting them to be in the 40s or 30s by the end of the year.
And we look at a team here that could, I don't know if 13 seed line might be a bit of a stretch, but either 13 or the 14 seed line. Mm-hmm. So you look at them playing a team like a Utah, like a VCU, a West Virginia, a Wichita State. Now that's a killer first round matchup for those teams.
Yeah, I mean, if Long Beach runs away from this league and gets their RPI into the 40s or 30s, do you think the committee looks at them as being inside the bubble? Healthy RPI, murder out of conference schedule, only two sort of notable wins, Kansas State, Xavier neutral, or do you think they needed at least one of those?
Well, I mean, yeah, you do have the Kansas State neutral, Xavier neutral, uh, kind of tempered by the fact that you lost that UC Davis game already in conference
Yeah,
play. You really didn't have much room for you didn't really have much margin for error here.
yeah,
And they had more games that they should have won. They lost a game to BYU. They lost to Stephen F. Austin. They lost to
yeah,
St.
okay.
John's. They lost to Syracuse. Yeah, those are big name programs, but they're not
Yeah,
exactly
that's
solid field programs.
right. That's fair. So you think they needed one or two of those?
I think they might have needed one or two more wins. Now, if they literally run the table and do not lose again to the Big West title game, uh,
Oh, that would be a
I'm
shame.
willing to. It becomes a very interesting case because
Yeah, if that happens, that will be a shame. If that happens, I hope they get in. Just because, oh, how disappointing is it? Just put them in for the simple. I mean, if it's them and another team, and it's debatable, reward the team that actually got out there and did what the committee supposedly says you're supposed to do.
yeah, well, it'll be a very
Yeah,
interesting case. I don't know that's going
yeah,
to happen. I don't know that Long Beach is good enough to run the table, but let's see what
right.
happens here.
Okay.
Uh, Speaking of upsets, another big one tonight. Northeastern went to Drexel and did something that the Surgeon General does not recommend.
Oh my God. Yeah, the surgeon. They went in the Drexel and lost. This is a 6-14 team that lost to Philadelphia somebody
They
earlier in
lost,
the year.
yeah, the Philadelphia College of Sciences, or
Yeah.
oh
Now,
my God, I can't even remember what they were called.
so and again, this is
University of the Sciences of
yeah,
Philadelphia.
University of this. Oh, for them to go on the road and lose that game, this is clusing to the nth level. This is a serious first degree cluse. Wow.
Well, meanwhile, what else did happen in the Colonial today was William and Mary picked up a huge win over Hofstra.
Yeah.
Um, Hofstra team has started to fade a little bit. Uh, I'm really liking this Bill and Mary team at the moment, though.
I like Bill and Mary, and I mean they were so close last year. They've been so close a couple of times. I think this is the year they do it. This is the year they dance. The number will go down to 4. Bill and Mary, right now in a tie for first place. Again, we're kind of log jammed here. 4 teams separated by just one game. James Madison being the other, although I'm not
Well,
as big on them.
well, it's UNC Wilmington right now. That's tied with Bill and Mary. We brought
Oh
them up
yeah, oh yeah,
last week that they really came out of nowhere.
right.
Have already picked up several huge road victories against these top teams. And
Yeah, yeah. Let me clarify. Wilmington's tied with Bill and Mary. James Madison is the 4th team that's in the logjam of one game. The 4 teams separated by one game. That's what I was saying.
right.
Yeah. And again, what does that mean, Chad?
What does that mean? It means
Yes.
nothing.
It means nothing because
Let's temper this a little bit, though. The
yeah,
tournament is in Baltimore. Towson is not having a season this year.
right.
They'd be the home team, so it is going to be fairly neutral court.
Yeah.
Now Northeastern would have a pretty long way to travel, being that they're an outlier in the conference, but everybody else is
Yeah.
fairly local. Charleston's the other team that's an outlier there, I
Well,
guess.
I mean, they're also an outlier in the standings, so I don't
Well,
really
sure.
feel bad for them.
um, Over in Conference USA, David, more and more, I'm really liking this Western Kentucky team to the point where I seriously believe that if they continue to dominate the way they're doing right now, they might get in the at-large bid talk.
Yeah, I definitely think they will. I mean, and you got to keep in mind what running the table would involve. You're talking about beating Old Dominion. You're talking about winning at La Tech. And again, let's preface that. Like, if this team has to do that, they have to. It's not easy to win at La Tech, but that's what they're going to have to do. And if they do it, then they're in the discussion. I completely agree. They've looked really good since about mid-December on. Kind of got off, well, not even kind of. I mean, it was just so disappointing for them to start the year. But Ray Harper probably doing his best coaching job since he took over at Western Kentucky.
Yeah, it's just a great job that they've done. Although I guess the one thing that goes against them, we're normally used to Western Kentucky making the tournament after finishing 7th or 8th in their conference
Yeah, and
standings.
then running the yeah.
And while we're on Conference USA, we've got to discuss this Old Dominion collapse here, and
Oh
really, it's been a
man.
collapse. I mean, I think they did bounce back over the weekend with a victory finally, but
Yeah.
uh, uh, beating. No, you know what? They didn't. They haven't played.
No,
So
they lost to UAB. I mean,
and,
it was at UAB, but they lost rather handily. And
yeah,
again, UAB not a tournament team. Middle Tennessee not a tournament team. I realize it's not easy to win on the road, but you know what else isn't easy? Making the tournament. Those are the kinds of games that you need to win. Old Dominion does not fit the profile of an under-the-radar team that typically gets in at large. They still have a healthy RPI. They do have the wins against LSU and VCU, but they're 3 games behind the conference leader. It is rare to see an under-the-radar team get in if they don't finish first place outright, or even if they don't finish first place outright. Generally, when you see it, like in the West Coast, or when we've seen it before, we've seen it in the Horizon a couple times. Uh, the first place team gets in as well. Uh,
yeah,
they're 3 games behind the leader.
yeah. They've got to be first or second in this conference to even be in the discussion.
Right. And
I do have 15 for record, but it's really is 2 wins right now. A little bit hurt by Georgia State's collapse
yeah.
because that was another big win for them at the time.
And God, I thought that was such a great game when I watched it. And complimented. I mean, I discussed how I thought both teams were, at large caliber teams, and I need to get my people on that. They need to go back and erase that.
And you know what? The other thing that I got to knock Old Dominion here for, they only played 4 games non-conference away from home. 3 of them were in the Virgin Islands at the Paradise Jam. They only had 1 true road game at George Mason. And, if you lose to George Mason, you're disqualified for the tournament, just like Boston College. So
Right.
it
Yes.
doesn't count
Absolutely.
as a road game.
Doesn't count. So.
Yeah, so you gotta schedule on the road, and if you can't win on the road, don't get the road wins in non-conference play. You damn well better get them in conference play, and they've already lost 3 times on the road in conference play.
Right.
Moving on to the Horizon League, Green Bay got by Valpo at home, their first big test of the season. I still like this Valpo team, although not to the extent of being an at-large consideration team.
Yeah, and that's how I am too. I think Valpo could win the conference tournament.
Yes.
I think Green Bay, and again, as we discussed, if they win out the regular season, I think they're in.
Right. I mean, the big. I really think there's only one major test left for Green Bay. That is February 13th. They're at Valpo. If they win that game, they don't have something crazy happen the rest of the schedule, I think they're there. Even if they do fall in the conference tournament and Valpo takes it.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that.
All right. Over in the Ivy League, David.
Boy.
What another upset we had this week. Harvard.
Harvard.
To Dartmouth.
Oh my God.
This was the two huge wins came out of the state of New Hampshire this past week, with New Hampshire beating Vermont, and then now Dartmouth knocks off Harvard.
It was surprising. And now Harvard. Now they'll probably be able to do it, but Harvard needs to catch Yale.
They play twice. So
yeah, they play twice, so they'll have their chances. But we came in wondering that if Yale was good enough, we didn't think Yale was as good as Harvard, but we thought that they were better than the rest of the league, perhaps, and would be able to keep pace with Harvard. And if they would have split the two with each winning at home, who knows? Now Harvard needs to catch Yale. Now I do think they'll be able to do it, but that is not a good loss for Harvard. We unlike everybody else, we say inside the bubble, outside the bubble. With this league, it really doesn't matter because there is no tournament. But if there were a tournament, I think Harvard would be outside the bubble at this point.
Yeah. If there's any reason why Harvard would need an at-large bid, if the Ivy League suddenly did not have an automatic bid, they got disqualified from having one. Like in football, they don't get an automatic bid.
They turn it down. They could have it if they wanted it.
Well.
Yeah.
They don't have one. So yeah, Harvard would not be in right now, and I don't think there's anything they could do short of winning out to even get in that discussion. But of course, winning out puts them in the field, so it's a moot point.
Right.
Um, Down in the Metro Atlantic, Iona is now still a game up on both Rider and Monmouth, the two New Jersey schools.
Yeah.
Uh, Marist picked up a win to get out of the Centenary Award candidacy there as
Yeah,
well.
huge win for them. I mean, they really blew their centenary chances, but huge win for Mantis. Marist. Lee is still talking about it.
Yeah. And Marist has another shot coming up Friday. They get to play Niagara. I was at last Friday night this Niagara at Monmouth game. Monmouth I was fairly impressed with. I think they're good enough to give a few teams some, in this conference at least the challenge, and they're sitting there 7-3 in the league to prove that.
Yeah.
Niagara kind of only had half a clue of what was going on defensively when they were on defense, which was actually a compliment because they had no clue when they were on offense, which is a really shame. I think they got a little bit of talent on that Niagara team, but they just didn't seem to be buying into what their coach was trying to sell them, and that's not a good combination.
Right.
Uh,
Oh man.
and I think it was Chris Casey's the head coach there in Niagara.
Yeah.
He was very animated on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. He was very animated, and I'm not quite. Maybe he was a little too animated for his team.
Yeah.
But
And Iona on top of the league by a half game, like you said. This is a potentially dangerous Iona team, and again, they have a huge range. They can play way up and beat good teams, even at large caliber teams, but then they can cluse, hence the term clusing, and lose to Marist.
yes,
Yeah.
over in the MAC, we want to talk about conferences that are tight. We have Kent State's now up to at 6-1 in the conference. We have 2 5-2 teams in Bowling Green and Akron. We then have 4-4-3 teams in Buffalo, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, and Toledo.
Yeah.
There are 7 to 8 teams that can win this conference and that can win this automatic bid.
Yeah.
And the MAC uses kind of an extended ladder format, I'd almost call it, where the top 2 seeds get buys into the semis, 3 and 4 get buys into the quarters, and 5 through 12 have to play 5 rounds to win the championship.
Yeah, I'm not I like the top 2 teams into the semis, but yeah, because essentially there's 12 teams, and what they do is that it's essentially 2 tournaments of 5 to make up the 2 semifinalists to meet the 2 number 1 seeds,
right?
Or the top 2 seeds. That made no sense. Forget what I just said. It's good if you followed it, but let's look at this league a little bit. It's one of my favorite leagues. I know you like it as well, but I mean, I think the rivalries are great, the fans are great, and the teams are pretty good. One of the problems, and I hate to, this is like something Lee Del Vecchio would say, but I hate saying it. With the rivalry, with the parity, because this league has so much trouble making cases collectively for themselves out of conference, the few teams that do make cases for themselves end up getting beat up in conference because of the rivalry and parity. Do you think that's a stretch? Do you agree with that? Disagree with that?
No, I agree with that completely. A team like a Buffalo or a Bowling Green or a Toledo or Central Michigan this year, had they been able to just really run through this conference with only 1 or 2 losses, could have had a solid at-large case. I mean, there's a couple teams we've talked about as we got to the end of non-conference play. Wow, this could be a team that contends for an at-large bid. But when you just beat each other up, you're limiting yourself to 1 bid just because everybody has too many losses at the end of the day.
Right, and again, and I'm not saying that other conferences don't have rivalries. I'm not saying that it's easy in Conference USA or the Metro Atlantic or anywhere else to where if you have a team that makes a strong case out of conference to go on the road. But like Central Michigan, it's not easy to go to Eastern. It's not easy to go to Western Michigan. For the Ohio schools, Toledo, who we really liked, Akron, it's not easy to go to Kent. It's not easy to go to Akron. I think that there's more rivalry and snake pits in this league than most other under-the-radar leagues.
I would agree with that completely.
Yeah. So. You know.
So anyhow, in terms of who we like in this league now, I mean, is Kent State your pick? I still kind of like Buffalo a bit. I still think Toledo's lurking there, but uh,
Yeah.
Kent is 6-1, and they just came off a big win over Central Michigan.
Right, and again, this Kent Akron. I mean, Akron's really playing well too, and Bowling Green. Oh my, I mean, this is just such a great conference because what it boils down to is just this powder cake. I mean, it's a resemblance of what championship week used to be like. You got Kent, you got Akron, like the rivalry there. You got Bowling Green, who's kind of come lately, and then you got the two, and you throw them all into Cleveland. I don't know. I really don't know. It's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, we'll probably play this tournament, and Ball State will win it all. So
Yeah.
Over in the MEAC, I still love this North Carolina Central team. They had a hell of a challenge on national TV the other night against Delaware State. They did pull the game out, though.
Kind of a surprising. I was surprised they had that much trouble.
Yeah, but they are 8-0 in conference now. I don't know that they have any serious tests left. Norfolk State, they've already been on the road. They don't play them again during the regular season. They've actually, I mean, their toughest game left really is coming up this Saturday. They've got a non-conference game. They're going to be at East Tennessee State.
I wonder what that's kind of odd. But was that rescheduled or?
Yeah, I lost you there for a second, Dave. What'd you say?
Oh yeah, I just said that's kind of odd. Was that game? Is that a makeup game from earlier, or it's just? I mean, we see out of conference games at this juncture, but they're generally showcase games made for television.
Yeah, I don't know. It may have just been that there was a quirk in the schedule here, especially with the 13-team MEAC. You always have one team who's off, and maybe they just decided to throw it in there. I think I guess ETSU had a day off as well. But other than that, everybody else on their schedule in conference play is sub 300 Ken Palm, so they really shouldn't lose again.
Right.
Moving on to the Missouri Valley Conference, Northern Iowa had to sweat out a game at Southern Illinois tonight. They did pull out the victory.
Yeah. And
against a not very good Southern Illinois team.
Right, and again, I think is Northern Iowa kind of getting road weary. They just look kind of tired.
I mean, we're not really supposed to be talking about Northern Iowa, but let's spend a minute on them because I already brought them up. They are not technically an under-the-radar team. Yeah, they might be. On the other hand, it might have just been a look ahead. They do have that huge game coming up Saturday. They're going to be hosting Wichita State, one of the biggest home games in recent history in Northern Cedar Falls there. So,
and they're expecting a halfway. Oh, it's going to be raucous. You're going to tune in for that one. It's going to be a show.
As far as the rest of the conference goes, we talked some Evansville, some Illinois State, some Loyola early in the season. It looks like they're all just kind of falling back enough that if anybody else is going to, if this team conference is going to get third base, it's going to come because something crazy happens in the conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Over in another jumbled up league here with 5 teams within 2 games of each other, and then 6 teams within 2 games of each other, the Northeast Conference.
Yeah, and again, you know what that means in this conference?
Of Todd, actually. They do
a lot because they're doing it right.
Yes, campus sites in this conference.
Yes.
Right now, 3-way tie between SF Brooklyn, Robert Morris, and Bryant. Mount St. Mary's, SFPA, Wagner all in there. Now, only the top 8 teams will qualify for the conference tournament. It looks like Central Connecticut State's going to be one of the 2 not to make it.
Right.
Fairleigh Dickinson, LIU, Brooklyn, Sacred Heart kind of battling for that other team not to make it.
Right. And again, I love this league, and I realize that it's on its way to the 16 line, maybe on its way to the first 4, but just from a sheer entertainment standpoint, this league has good rivalries, albeit on a smaller scale. And this league has stakes all throughout conference play because of the campus sites in the conference tournament. All the games are streamed on NEC.com. It's really accessible. It's just a fun league to watch.
And might I point out what a short drive it is from Newark to places like Brooklyn for St. Francis, Brooklyn for LIU Brooklyn, Fairleigh Dickinson. Really short drive from, say, an NJIT campus.
Yes. NJIT, and
Right in the heart of the rivalries there.
Right in the heart of the rivalries. It's an 11-team league. It gets to 12. You get symmetry.
It's a
Scheduling.
10-team league, but
It's a 10-team league. Well, it gets it.
We'll add somebody else too.
We'll add somebody else. Oh, but yeah, NJIT would be a good fit. Who really
maybe
needs,
that University of the Sciences team from Philadelphia? We can.
Yeah, well, who needs Central Connecticut? We can kick them. UAB could join this league.
UAB for the Northeast
wants them. Okay.
Over in the Ohio Valley Conference, Murray State's now undefeated 7-0 in conference play.
This team.
This team is rising really fast in my books. They have not lost since November 29th.
Right, and the games they lost in November were ridiculous. Losing to Houston, losing to games you would really expect them to win. Not only is this Murray team, even if they win out, they're not going to have the paper to be inside the bubble, I don't think. But if they do make the field, this is a dangerous team in the round of 64.
I think they have an interesting argument if they win. I'm going to talk about literally winning out. That you go undefeated in 16-0 in the OVC.
What's their strength of schedule? It's got to be a million.
On Ken Palm, their overall strength of schedule is 267. Their non-conference was 231. It's not a good strength of schedule. They do have a win over Western Kentucky, who we discussed earlier. They won at Evansville. Two of the losses were Xavier and Valpo, which are kind of not as awful. The other two, Portland and Houston, were bad though.
Yeah.
But I think it's at least they'll be on the board and they'll be discussed if they do not lose again. They will. There is a bye there's a ladder format in the OVC tournament. They would get a bye right into the semifinals.
Yeah.
So they'd only have to win 2 games to win that conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know who else is that good in this conference. Belmont
showed signs of life. Eastern Kentucky showed signs of life remarkably for one game, but then they went back to sleep. Other than that, Murray should run away with it. I said before the season started that if Murray State wins 29 games, they'll be the most underachieving 29 game winner in history. And their schedule is pitiful. The conference is pitiful compared to what they are. They really should win this. But they'll lose a game or two between now and the end because they'll close. We almost called it Murray.
David, over the Patriot League.
Oh, boy.
Now, this is pretty interesting here. From 3rd place to dead last, 10th place, there is 1 game separating 3rd from 10th place right now.
Yeah.
Everybody in this conference is 4-4, 4-5, or 3-5, except for the top 2 teams.
Yes, and if you go back to our Under the Radar season preview, you had mentioned, or you emphasized strongly the parity in this league. Correct.
Pat myself on the back here. Parity. I didn't say good. I said parity. This conference could go anywhere right now. Last week we thought American was the best team. Right now they're in 7th place in the standings. Bucknell is 6-2. Colgate 6-3 after a loss tonight. Bucknell picked up a win tonight to get to 6-2. You can literally pick any of these 10 teams' names out of the hat and say they're going to win the conference, and I can't argue that you're wrong, that you're crazy.
And because, again, this is another conference that does the campus sites, how pivotal does every game feel when you are this log-jammed? It's just great stuff. And, again, this is a league with good rivalry. We have Lehigh Lafayette. We have Holy Cross. Oh, God, I'm blanking here.
Boston U, I guess, is there. You got, Holy
Cross, Boston U.
Holy Cross and Bucknell had some great rivalries back in the earlier days of this conference.
Right. You have Army and Navy, sort of a good rivalry.
Army and Navy. Navy and Loyola are fairly close geographically. Americans down there as well. Yeah, it's. But I do enjoy the Patriot League. I've always enjoyed watching Patriot League.
Yeah.
You can turn on any game, any Patriot League regular season game this season. I'm going to almost guarantee you're going to get an exciting game.
Yes, and another reason you can turn on any Patriot League game is because they're all on. You can get them on the Patriot League website, and like the Northeast Conference, great basketball, great rivalry, and great stakes because they're doing it right.
Yeah, and The Northeast as well. You can get all those games there on their website. In fact, I'll just do a little point out here. They're on our main hoopshd.com website. There is a tab there with the live video streaming guide. If you want to know where to watch your teams, it is there. And we are very close to the day when every single game will be available to be streamed. We are very close to that, even this season.
Yeah.
Another conference that streams all its games is the Southern Conference as well.
Yep.
That was a new one this season. Wofford sitting at 7-1, tied with Chattanooga actually, who I liked as the second best team heading into the season. Only tied because Wofford lost a game that still doesn't make any sense to me. But
right. I still think Wofford is the class of this league. They have a really healthy RPI. It's in the 40s. If they win out, it'll probably be their RPI will at least be in the at-large caliber range.
Right.
I don't think Wofford's profile will be. And again, you hate to mention one game, but the one game they lost was awful. They'll probably need to win the conference tournament, but when they're not losing to the Citadel, this is a good Wofford team. They won at NC State.
They beat Iona as well.
And again, this is a team that if they get onto that 13 line, they can really make a 4-seed sweat. I mean, they could really squeeze them and even beat them.
I think you're looking at a 12 seed here in this Wofford team. If they do, yeah, I think they're right there.
Do you think they can get inside the bubble, or is that out of the question? Because here's the problem: when you look and you think, oh man, healthy RPI, let's look a little further. They will not win another game against the top 100 because they don't play anymore.
And that's their problem. They are not going. They're going to have when you get the top 100 wins. If I could actually get my thing, they're going to have the win at NC State and a home win over Iona, and that's it. You're going to be talking about 2 wins, and then when you look, you're going to have 2 losses outside the top 100. Well, one of the losses was at William & Mary. That might be a top 100 loss, but you're definitely going to have 1 loss outside the top 100, and if they need an at-large bid,
outside the top 300.
They have 1 loss outside the top 300. They're going to have a second loss at least outside the top 100 if it's Chattanooga. Worse than that if it's somebody else if they need an at-large bid. So
probably not.
I don't think they can get there because I think 1 more bad loss kills them, and they can't get a good loss and need an at-large bid.
Right.
Speaking about a team that I do think can suffer a bad loss in this conference tournament and have a very good case for an at-large bid, Stephen F. Austin. We mentioned this the other night. What they did, Sam Houston State, their number 1 rival in the conference, by far the second best team in that conference, and they went down to Sam Houston on the road over the weekend and pounded them. It was a 9-point final margin, an 11-point final margin victory. It was about 25 points in reality there.
Yeah. We're again. I guess the question is, and I don't think we even know this ourselves. When we sit down and do this, are we acting as if we are the committee, or are we trying to guess the committee, or is it some kind of combination of both? Here's my problem with SFA, and I think it's the same problem the committee will have. They've proven they can beat top 200 teams. That's it, or teams outside the top 200.
No, they've proven they can beat teams outside the top 50. They don't have a loss outside the top 50, and they have won at Memphis. They've beaten Long Beach, and they've won at San Diego.
They've beaten Memphis. They won at Memphis. That's an NIT.
Well, David, let's go to the. We were talking a few minutes ago about the Big West and about Long Beach, and said, hey, listen, what do you do with the Long Beach team that scheduled a ton of games but didn't win very many of them, versus a team that didn't schedule like that but won everything? Well, here's the perfect example. Long Beach versus SFA, and on top of that, you can throw in the 2 teams who played each other, and SFA won that game.
Yeah, I mean
if that's one spot, SFA versus Long Beach for an at-large bid, it's a hell of a debate.
Well, to me, I mean, again, I reward the team that went out and scheduled and played, and it is just one game.
But SFA
Long Beach Xavier. Long Beach beat the teams Long Beach are beating are better than these teams. This conference is atrociously bad. I mean, anyway, I now having said that, do I think on the court this SFA team is capable of getting out of the round of 64, much less being as good as some of the teams on the bubble. I think that they are.
Well, and doesn't the committee also look at that? I mean, the committee is watching games. And
they have to be. They gave them a 12 last year when they did absolutely nothing to deserve better than a 15.
And they proved they proved they deserved the 12 by going out and winning.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they are watching. They watch everybody. In fact, I think the same person, because the committee members are assigned 3 conferences each. I think the same person that had the Southland last year has it this year, and he likes this SFA team.
And he was obviously convincing in the committee room, getting them a 12 seed last year. So
yeah,
I think it's a very interesting case.
Now, this is the question: was SFA actually inside the bubble? Because I think they were not.
No,
they were on the 12 line. Okay, they were not. Okay, I don't remember the final seed list.
In terms of the final seed list, they were seated below the first 4 team.
Okay, but they were close.
But they were close. But I think they played a tougher schedule this year than they did last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would have been quite a feat had they not.
Well, over in one of our favorite conferences in the SWAC, Texas Southern, who was dominating, lost at Arkansas Pine Bluff and needed 3 overtimes to beat Mississippi Valley State, currently ranked 347 out of 351 teams at KenPom. What happened here to the team that beat Michigan State?
I don't know. It's just sometimes you remember who's coaching the team.
It could be. Right now, I think Texas Southern, with that loss, though, has propelled themselves back down to the 16 line.
Oh, boy.
The best thing going for them is the first and the third place teams in this conference. Alabama State at 7-0 in conference play. Southern at 6-2, both ineligible for the NCAA tournament. So if Texas Southern can't win the SWAC tournament, they do not belong in any tournament whatsoever. And they will not be in any tournament whatsoever.
Right. Okay.
I'm pretty certain that if Alabama State does win the SWAC, that and Texas Southern finishes second, that Texas Southern does not get an automatic NIT bid. The SWAC would forfeit that automatic NIT bid.
Well, good. And honestly, I mean, I know they went out and beat Michigan State, sweated Auburn, and beat Kansas State, but and I say this as obviously an under-the-radar guy. I would like to see somebody else get that spot if they fail to win the conference tournament. Or finish first. Now, if they finish first, absolutely put them in the NIT.
If they finish outright first place, they get the, and they lose in the conference tournament, they get the NIT bid. Yes.
Right.
I have a new team over in the Summit League. We've been talking North Dakota State for a while now. South Dakota State has won 6 straight games.
Yeah.
Including a nice win at Oral Roberts over the weekend. They're
really
now my pick there.
Yeah, and they've really come on strong. After a pitiful out of conference and a pitiful start to conference, they've actually looked really good. And I meant to look at this before we started the show. I don't know if it was a situation with getting a key player back. To be honest, I've only seen South Dakota State play a game and a half this year.
Well, just looking at them right now, George Marshall has only played 13 games. And he was actually not playing for them until we slap our computer here a little bit. He did not play until December 18th, but he's been averaging double figures, including putting up 25 points against Nebraska Omaha.
Yeah. I remember him from last year. He must have been ineligible for the first semester.
Yeah, that's what's looking like.
Hurt. I hope I didn't. I mean, he could have been injured. I shouldn't have assumed he was ineligible. But yeah, they have looked really good. They really have.
And considering nobody else in this conference does look any good, we're all about the Jackrabbits right now.
Right.
We talked a little bit earlier about television deals and streaming, David. The Sun Belt Conference has the worst TV streaming combination of any conference of all 32 of them, in my opinion. I cannot watch a Sun Belt game. You get maybe 1 or 2 a week that ESPN3 streams for you, and that's it. And this is for a conference that is.
This is an FBS conference.
FBS. ESPN has the rights to all their football games. They're all streamed. Nothing is done on the basketball side. You can't
And
watch these games. It's
it's
ridiculous.
frustrating. And in years past, they were with CSS, I believe that was Comcast Sports South. The network no longer exists,
Right.
mercifully. They had the rights to the Sun Belt, and they had the rights to several Conference USA games. But the problem is, no providers carried them. DirecTV didn't. I do not believe Dish Network or what's the other major one? The AT&T Uverse did.
Right.
You know who else did not carry the Comcast Sports South network?
That'd be Comcast.
Comcast. Comcast did not carry the Comcast Sports South network. It was so poorly distributed.
But at least it was something out there. Now
Bright
there's
House,
nothing.
which is a Southern cable company, is the only one that I knew of that had it. Charter had it. Charter had it in the South on the premium tier. That was it. What a ridiculous deal. I don't know, and it's not a whole lot better now.
There's no deal right now.
Yeah.
You'll be lucky if you can find one or two Sunbelt games a week, and normally it ends up being Arkansas State versus Troy that nobody cares about.
Right.
Right in terms of the standings, though, which is about the only way we can find out anything about these teams, Georgia Southern at 6-2 has a half-game lead over a three-way tie between Texas Arlington,
Yeah.
Georgia State, and Louisiana Monroe. Is Georgia State starting to turn things around? Do we need to start paying attention to them again?
I think they've woken up a little bit. They're turning it around, but let me preface that by saying they're better than what they were. They're not nearly as good as what we thought.
Well,
Is that fair?
Well, I think we'll find out a little bit more tomorrow night. I just mentioned they're in that one of the teams in that tie with them is Texas Arlington. They're at Arlington tomorrow night. That's the game. That's the type of game that they've got to win.
Yeah. But just one more thing. Yeah, about this horrendous television deal. It is an issue when you work in college athletics. As I'm sure you would imagine, any athletic department, you're maxing out DirecTV, getting all the sports packages. This one is you're maxing out the passwords for the online streaming so you can scout. This one is hard to scout because it's not on, and it is frustrating.
Yeah. So Sunbelt, get yourselves together and put together a conference deal next season.
Right.
Even if it's something that has a fee involved with it, like the Ivy League Digital Network does.
Yeah.
It's better than having nothing at all. And the only way to watch these games is to go to individual team websites and pay $80 for a season for each team, which I'm not going to do.
Right. Yes.
Over in the West Coast Conference, let's talk a little St. Mary's here, David.
Yeah, bloated record. Oh boy, they played one good team with Gonzaga, but they don't really have high quality wins, but they have a quantity of them, and they're not NCAA tournament caliber teams, but there's enough around maybe that are NIT caliber, and one or two that are on the road that I think puts SMC right on the bubble.
Yeah,
that's where we have them.
If you want to compare this to Stephen F. Austin, who we just discussed, SFA has 250, 300 RPI wins. St. Mary's, very similar record, but their wins are in the 150s, and that's a big difference. And I do think that gets St. Mary's a bit of a nod there, although in the end I think I still like SFA better because St. Mary's has a glaringly bad home loss to Northern Arizona.
Yes, and again, that's what kills you when you get out there and close like that.
Mm-hmm.
It can kill you.
Is BYU toast?
Yes. Thank the Lord for small fish.
Thank the Lord for those of us that do build brackets. BYU not being able to play on a Sunday can become a nightmare.
Right.
Second to last.
Okay.
The
second. They say last but not least. This is second to last and definitely least.
I still like New Mexico State as the best team in the WAC, but that's just because nobody has shown any life other than them. Right. If anybody did, I'd put it in a heartbeat.
Okay, here is right at the top, tied with New Mexico State. This is a testament to how good this league is the University of Missouri at Kansas City, 3-1 in the conference. 8-13 overall, sub 300 RPI, tied for first. Wow,
In fact, the
that's awful.
only top 200 RPI team in the conference is New Mexico State at 173.
Oh, God.
Pathetically bad conference.
On
And
their way to Dayton, enjoy it. It's a wonderful place to be in March.
finally, last but certainly not least, our
The People's
NJIT
Team!
Highlanders.
Woohoo!
Huge victory over the weekend at South Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Fun
And a
game.
victory at Maine last week as well.
Yeah, and the South Alabama game was fun because it was back and forth for the first 36 minutes, and then to watch them blow it open on the road. And I realize South Alabama isn't that strong, but it was still a road win. I really hope this team has gotten the attention of the CIT. I'm a little worried because it is an invitational. The NCAA tournament, 100% merit. These invitationals, they are maybe 50, 60% merit. The rest, brand name and appeal. But please take NJIT, please.
And NJIT have a very interesting schedule coming up next week. This is what happens when you're an independent.
Yeah.
They are playing home games Monday night against Hampton and Tuesday night against Delaware State. Back-to-back nights. Very, very rare that you see this. But when you're an independent, these are when those teams are available. Playing a pair of MEAC teams, like we discussed. The MEAC with an odd number of teams in its conference has teams with a day off. It's always going to have a team with a day off. That's why they've actually had 5 different MEAC teams on the schedule here late in the season.
Yeah. And again, the America East, the Northeast, let's get them into one of those leagues.
Yeah. All right, that concludes our run through the conferences. I guess we want to quickly do our top 10 lists here, David.
Yeah, I got to pull mine up. Where'd it go?
While you're getting that, mine are, I mentioned that SFA team, maybe overrating them a little bit, but I have them at number 1 overall just because I was so blown away by that Sam Houston State game this weekend.
Right. Green Bay is my number 1 team. I think that they will get inside the bubble. We're debating SFA. I don't think it's a debate with Green Bay if they win out. Number 2, and this one's risky, I really like this Western Kentucky team. I think they've been playing outstanding, but there's an asterisk here, and even though I have them number 2, I'm wondering if I have them too high. Their schedule is backlogged with road games. So in order for them to do what they need to do to get inside the bubble, they're going to have to win on the road a lot late. I don't know how. Nobody's as good on the road as they are at home. I don't know if they'll be able to do it because is the fact that they've sprinted out ahead of CUSA a product of having so many front-loaded games at home?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I actually have Western Kentucky at 3, Green Bay at 2, so I have them up there right now as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just tough for me to say a team that's undefeated in its conference with 6, 7, 8 wins already. Yeah, Princeton is 1-0 in the Ivy League, but that doesn't count for me at this point.
Well, they're the protected champion, Jerry.
I've got this Western Kentucky team right there at 3, and right behind them, another undefeated team in conference, Murray State at 4.
Yeah, I have Murray State. I actually have them down the list a little bit, but this is. You have Wofford at 4 in the email, but
I modified my email because I completely forgot about my first take of this. I completely forgot about Murray State.
Yeah, so. Murray State is tough, and again, like we said, I do think they're going to run roughshod over the OVC, get on the 13 line, and be a very, very tough opponent for someone. They're a good team.
Right. I've got at number 5. I have Wofford. 6. I have this ODU team still on my list, even though I'm not projecting them into the field right now.
Yeah, ODU is been. I mean, their defense, which appeared to be so strong, and one of their strong points, UAB shot 72% against this team.
Yeah, there's something wrong there in Old Dominion, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
At 7, I have the St. Mary's team we just discussed.
Yeah.
At number 8, I have this Louisiana Tech team out of Conference USA, another team that.
Yeah, I like them a lot. We have a UTR huge banner game coming up this weekend. We'll get to that here in a second. Western Kentucky going to La Tech.
Yeah, and that's actually tomorrow night.
Or tomorrow. Oh, okay.
Yeah. At 9th place, I really went back and forth on my ninth place team. I end up giving it to Harvard because I still have
Yeah.
faith in this team a little bit, but I think a strong argument could be made for Kent State, for Long Beach, for
Yeah.
Eastern Washington, even for Valpo or Iona here. There's a lot of teams that could be in this spot here.
Right. Yeah. I actually had, I think, Eastern Washington in this spot, and then
Right.
Kent State rounded out my top 10. I did have an 11th team.
I have a 10th team here. Even though I just mentioned a bunch of teams, my 10th place team still from last week. I still have this North Carolina Central team.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
telling you
yeah.
right now, David, we've got to see what the matchup is, but I have a very good chance that I'm going to be picking them to win their first round game of the tournament. That's all I'm
Wow,
going to say
that's
about it.
bold.
Yeah.
That is. Well, I have an additional team or teams
11th
that
team.
are the 11th team that's in that footprint, and I kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the show. It is the entire ACC conference, the Athletic Coast Conference. The reason is I submitted, as you saw last week, my application to be a guest. What was it? A guest analyst or
A
video?
guest reporter. Yeah, a guest
Yeah, a
reporter.
guest video.
Digital
They
network.
have not. It's been a week. They have not gotten back to me, and I realize that they're not closing the search until February 20th. But this is me we're talking about here, and they still haven't gotten back. So I am, and I again, don't tell me I can't arbitrarily do this.
Well,
You do it all the time. I am relegating the ACC down to under the radar status. So Chad, let's talk about the ACC.
well, I got to tell you, David, I mean, they do have till February 20th, and I have been checking my mail every day as your attorney looking for that restraining order. So,
Well, I mean, if I don't hear by them from next week, I'm going there in person.
uh, uh, with that, I think we're going to do a quick run through of the upcoming games. We mentioned tomorrow night, Western Kentucky at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah. Big
Also,
one.
let's see what else we have here coming up tomorrow night. I mentioned Georgia State at Texas Arlington, also out of the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
Eastern Kentucky and Murray State over in the Ohio Valley.
Yeah. That should be a good one, but I don't know. That's a good conference rivalry, but I think Murray rolls. You there, Chad?
UC Santa Barbara in the Big West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I lost you. Man, that's been happening a lot tonight.
Friday night, 10 p.m. game on ESPNU. Kent State at Buffalo, a pretty big one in the MAC there.
Right, late night, Friday night, and the students are going to be, they get out of class at about 3. Oh, man, what are should be fun.
Big day coming up on Saturday. Just want to throw a few games out there. Green Bay's at Cleveland State. Cleveland State team's had a little bit of a life this year in the Horizon League. Not much, but a little bit of life to them. Alabama State at Texas Southern, a huge game in the SWAC.
Sort of.
So undefeated Alabama State.
It actually is because it has first place implications, which has NIT implications in the event that Texas Southern doesn't get the bid. Good call.
And talking about first place battles, Colgate and Bucknell, the top two teams in the Patriot League, going head to head.
Yeah, and that is big in home court advantage stipulations, like we talked earlier about the stakes in that league.
And of course, we also have this game here, Virginia and Duke. That's an under the radar game.
Yes, it is now.
Not much on Sunday because there's some type of football game or something Sunday afternoon.
Right.
I don't really know what they're talking about with that, but
I don't know. I mean, I didn't want to talk about this, but we have to.
Mm.
I have written my congressman. I hope you have done the same. The balls were deflated. We need to stop the madness. Call the president. Call your congressman. Call law enforcement. The balls were deflated.
The balls were deflated.
Oh my God! I love it when America overreacts to something that means absolutely nothing. It's great.
We mentioned NJIT games Monday and Tuesday. Not too much else there other than a few good games in the ACC. Coming up on Wednesday night, we've got Kent State and Western Michigan. We've got Bucknell and Lafayette in the Patriot League, or every other Patriot League game as well.
Right.
Detroit's at Valpo, a bit of a test there in the second place team. In
Valpo
the
trying to keep pace with Green Bay there, which won't be easy, but Yeah.
Um, that's about it, unless there's anything else that you specifically want to bring up in terms of upcoming games here, David.
No, really, I was going to close with this, but again, write your congressman. The balls were deflated.
The balls were deflated.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we could just throw one other under the radar team that's getting a big win tonight. Georgia Tech is still pounding
Yes.
Miami.
Yes. And again, the reason they have been relegated, and if I don't hear from them by next week, they're not going to like what's going to happen.
um, so join us again next week where we'll be talking all. I guess we're up to 24 under the radar conferences,
Yeah.
including the ACC, unless we hear otherwise. But with that, have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again real soon.